Topo Athletic is committed to lifelong health and better movement. Topo builds running shoes for those who get out there every day regardless of weather, speed, energy, or mood. Their distinctive fit and feel combines instinctive human movement with modern performance and lightweight comfort to help you keep going, keep trying, and keep moving. Discover the Topo difference and step into a run experience unlike any other.
Okay, well, we are officially live. As you can tell, we're still working the knacks out on this. That's part of the process, and we're excited to have everyone be a part of it. But hello, everybody. Welcome to I think it's the 87th edition of the Fireside Chat. I'll be honest, we may have in the holiday season lost count here and there with some of the special episodes, but who really gives a shit? And by the way, for those of you who are new in this very first episode of the season, yes, cursing is allowed. We went through this with Brandon Hozak. It's part of endurance sports and it's part of the journey, but we're excited this time around to bring back a guest who has been on our show. This is the third time, actually. The last time with fellow Topo athlete Sandy Nypaver and on the Fiery Embers as well. Non-binary athlete, Ironman champion, cellist. I'm probably getting that wrong. Just all-around really smart person, really cool individual, and Topo athletic athlete. And has one of the coolest nicknames I've heard to this day, the Purple Tiger. There's a whole story of it. I might even have to ask Rach to tell that story again because it's a really interesting one. But without further ado, bringing back Rach McBride. Rach, how's it going?
Hi, it's going pretty well. Yeah.
I feel like this needs I feel like the only thing this software is missing is a cheering sound effect.
So like when you have those radio shows or like the old school radio shows where they just had to press a button and it was like applause or like some kind of like little, I don't know, musical thing.
Exactly. They kind of missed the boat on that one. Restream if you're listening to this.
A theme song. You need a theme song.
We need a theme song. We do have one person watching from LinkedIn. That's really cool. It's like of all the platforms you would peg to have somebody watching from, LinkedIn was not the one I would think of.
Not only that, but he's my buddy from lifetimes ago, and I believe he's in Portugal now too. So it's even better. We're an international show.
But Rach, it's awesome to have you back on. You already know the icebreaker question because you've already heard it with countless times with the pineapple on pizza. But we have a new one for you. Or maybe this was already asked to you in the Fiery Embers, but pineapple on your burger, yay or nay?
Oh, on burger. No, this is new. It's funny. Everybody who I talk to who is like, oh, you're going to be on that show again? Like, oh, they like reference the whole pineapple debacle.
Pineapple debacle.
So how we almost came to fisticuffs on them.
I'm going to put that on my tombstone when I go. It just absolutely despises pineapple on pizza. Here lies Jason.
I'm a fan of sweet and salty, so I don't think I've ever had pineapple on a burger before, but I'd totally do it.
Oh man,
I'd be more apt for pineapple on a burger than ever on a pizza.
It's just so weird.
So you're saying there's a chance?
On a burger for sure. On pizza, not a chance. Zero. I don't believe in absolutes, but that's what I'm absolute about.
Okay, black and white.
So kind of before we dive into, reflect back on 2023, I saw a reel that you made recently about riding your bike out in I think it was either I was reading -4 or +4. It was something degrees Celsius, but it was a single digit number. So tell me about that and kind of what the winter season is like and preparing for your season in the winter, because I feel like that's not talked about enough.
Yeah, I used to be like an all the time riding outside for the first decade of my career, and then I discovered the trainer and fell in love with the trainer. But then I fell too much in love with the trainer, And so now I'm riding outside again, which I love. But yeah, sometimes I had kind of set myself. So I live in Vancouver in the Pacific Northwest. And it gets really cold and dark and rainy here over the winter. And so it can really suck to ride your bike outside. And I would set myself this like cap of like, if it's under 10 degrees, which is like 50 Celsius, or under and raining, that like I'm not going to go right outside because I will absolutely freeze my ass off. But I just felt like I needed to ride outside yesterday, and it was pouring rain, and yeah, it was 4 degrees. And I was pretty fine until the sun went down and the wind picked up, and I like did this kind of descent out of the trails, and then all of a sudden was on the water on the beach, and it just got really, really freezing. And yeah, I think I stood in the shower for like 10 minutes to warm up after that. But, that's kind of like part and parcel of training right now. The sun is setting here in like the 4 o'clock-ish range, 4:30 range. And it doesn't rise very early. So I think that's what a lot of folks who like work during the day have to do, is like you're training in the dark a lot, and it's really hard to get motivated for that. And so finding ways to get yourself, out of bed or after work outside and like training can be really tough. And you just have to find ways to inspire yourself. Sleep in your chamois or something like that. So when you wake up and you're already dressed, you have no excuse.
Do you actually do that?
No.
I was just imagining like the like one of those reels where the sheets come off and it's just like you're already in your cycling gear.
Where do you draw the line when it comes to swimming in the cold?
Oh, geez. Yeah, I know. During COVID, I feel like I really went above and beyond to get in the water when the pools were closed and it was still spring here and it was so freaking cold. I am not super comfortable like swimming outside if the water is like, I want to say 14 and under, which I think is somewhere around 55 or close to 60 maybe. Yeah, that's just like a little, especially if the air temperature is around the same. I can't do it. I've got an awesome thermal wetsuit from Blue 70 though, and like the gloves and the booties and the hat. And so that makes it feel really awkward to swim, but a lot warmer and tolerable. But I don't, I live like literally 4 blocks from the beach, and I'm rarely in the ocean. It's just cold, even in the summer.
I'm in the Pacific Northwest too now. Just moved up here, and there's zero chance. Like I was in Arizona and swam in 55 degree weather in December, preparing for 70.3 Indian Wells, and I would last 10, 15 minutes at best. And I had the Blue 70, like the earmuff thing.
Yeah.
And it made a huge difference in comparison to not having it, but like it's like frozen for 10 or 15 minutes, and it was unenjoyable. So I can't imagine swimming longer than that.
Yeah, no. I think I'd probably be in a different mindset if I needed to compete in temperatures like that. Like if I was going to go do Norseman or Patagonian or something like that. But, most of the swims we're doing are not in those temperatures. And I'm just like, I'll wear my wetsuit. If I need to practice swimming in my wetsuit, I'll do it in the pool. And I'll overheat a little bit at least, but I'll get some time in the wetsuit and that'll be fine.
Where do those races rank on your bucket list?
No, the X-Tris, the Norseman, oh man, yeah. Super high. Like I definitely, within the next, I would say 2 to 3 years, you will see me on one of those start lines.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. I am so jazzed about those races. I have been for years, but it's just like, it's quite logistically challenging and like financially challenging to get to those races because there isn't any prize money that I know of. You have to provide your own support. So it can be a bit challenging, but it looks like so much fun. It looks so terrible that it looks like so much fun.
a terrible idea. What time do we go?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Dumb decisions make great stories.
I love it.
Speaking of great stories and reflections, you made a post about your 2023, and I kind of wanted you to talk about that and the reflections you had from that season, because it seemed like there were quite a range of emotions involved with your 2023 season, and I wanted you to kind of dive into that.
Yeah, 2023 felt like a kind of a rough year for me. I was really trying to channel the freedom and like the joy that I had in 2022 that I think just made me have one of the best seasons of my career with like 270.3 wins, and like did all this fun gravel racing and like delved into mountain bike racing, doing the Lifetime Grand Prix. It was just such an amazing experience, and I got to have some like fun road trips and spend a lot of really rad time with rad people. And I think in 2022, I just took a bit of a step away from mostly the gravel racing. Like I had some early season gravel races, but then really focused mostly on 70.3 and, went to 70.3 Worlds in Finland, which was like, it was a big trip, and then ended up getting COVID after that. So it was kind of like this month of not a whole lot of training aside from that race. And then I have just been, I felt like all year I trained so hard and just put so much energy into like we were talking about offline before starting, just like hurting myself every day, putting my body in pain to try and get myself fitter and faster, and it just didn't really seem to show up on race day. And so, finishing that kind of season and on that sort of note with like a lot of what I felt was disappointment just in my own racing, despite all of the hard work. And then I think, as a professional athlete right now, the world is really changing as a professional triathlete specifically with the Ironman Pro Series coming in and the PTO series it's really changing the dynamic of racing, how we choose races, in a way that I'm not super keen on. I don't like being forced into specific races or like it feels uninspiring, to be honest. And so I think all of that combined, it really felt, I just was like, at the end of the year, I don't know what I'm looking forward to. I can't, like, how am I going to get inspired again? It really felt like the closest that I've come, to be honest, of being like, maybe I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm glad to say that I've gotten my mojo back and I'm really excited for 2024. And I've put a lot more gravel on my calendar because it makes me so happy. And I realized like the fitness that I got from all of that gravel racing, just being able to race so much. And it's so hard. It gave me such incredible fitness on the bike that helped my triathlon racing so much that I think it's going to be amazing. I think it's going to be a really great season. And so now I'm like, a lot more inspired to jump into the training, getting back into it. Yeah.
I have a two-part question based on that answer. So how far in advance do you know, if at all, what PTO and Ironman Pro series are going to be like? And then how do you balance that out with the joy that gravel cycling and the fitness that it brings you to participate in those sports? How do you balance those two things out?
Yeah, I mean, right now, so Ironman came out with their series a couple of months ago, so we're well aware of the races that are in that. PTO, I think there are 2 races on the calendar, and the rest of the races are like TBD. It sounds like things are in the works and they're just like working on government approvals or whatever, but it's really like, I don't understand how anybody else is planning a season right now, not knowing where those other 4 or 5 races are going to be. I mean, maybe other people are in the know and they just, and like, I'm sure somebody in there knows approximately when and where, but they haven't communicated that to the pros, even in confidence. So, yeah, it's just kind of a question mark. And all I can do is really, figure out a tentative season. I think this is what we all sort of do, is like figure out a tentative, like, first half of the season and just start, right now we're all kind of in the same boat of like, it's base training. Some folks are, racing already in Chile or with Oceanside coming up. But yeah, I think for me, I just consider the gravel side of things to be a supplement to triathlon in a way. And it gives me a lot of energy. It gives me a lot of like positivity in terms of like what sport can be and feel like for someone who is non-binary, for like that diversity and inclusion space of, okay, this is a sport that is really inspiring in that way and helps motivate me to kind of bring that back into triathlon in some way. Yeah. So it's almost like gravel is kind of like keeping me in the sport of triathlon in a way,
Yeah, it's what it sounds like a little bit in your response. And I guess a follow-up to that is, right, if your goal is to qualify for the World Championships, and the first half of the year you kind of have an idea, and the second half of the year you're kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen. How do you then, like, maybe you don't have an answer for this, but as the year progresses and you're like, I'd like to go do this event, but I'm already registered for this gravel event, and like trying to put that puzzle together has got to be overly complicated and very stressful.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, especially with the gravel calendar, there's just like almost every weekend in the summer, there's an awesome race that you can go do. And that's kind of what I've run into. Like initially I had this like awesome idea. The month of August, there are like 3 bucket list gravel races that I wanted to do. And I was like so jazzed about it. It's like Steamboat and Gravel Worlds and I think Rebecca's Private Idaho, maybe. They were all kind of linked together. And I was like, this is going to be amazing. Like the month of August is going to be the funnest ever. And then like Ironman Canada is like right smack in the middle of that. And I'm like, oh, like that, that is a bucket list of like, it's finally back in Penticton. I haven't raced Ironman Canada. Like it's local. I've always wanted to do the course. And so, yeah, like trying to figure out, okay, what do I do? It is challenging. And I think with triathlon, it's a little bit easier, but because there just aren't as many options. But yeah, adding gravel into the mix, it really, it means that it means that your season's going to be pretty dynamic. Like, I think that's why a lot of people don't really release their full like season intentions, is because things are super dynamic and change all the time. And in some ways I feel like, in some ways I'm like, I'm just going to be fit for like whatever comes up so that I can, that's kind of what happened in 2022 is like, I was focusing on Lifetime Grand Prix and like a little of the gravel racing and then like a little bit of triathlon. And then, in between like 2 gravel races, I just jump into Boulder 70.3 and end up winning it. And it's just like, what? How did this happen? Like, I just raced a mountain bike stage race last weekend and like a triathlon before that. And like, how does this happen? But fun things like that are just like allow me to just jump on opportunities. I feel like that's a theme actually in my life of just like, I don't like saying no to things. I like just like, if I can jump in and do it, I'll try anything once.
Excuse me. I'm gonna totally take over this interview because I'm like this idea of like all of these things to do, right? Like we all want to do these things. So how do you measure this versus that in terms of bucket list races? We talked about Patagonia Man and Nordic Man and, you know, doing this event versus that event, Rebecca's Private Idaho, Ironman Canada. Like, how do you figure all of this stuff out? Like, do you have a list, a running list, a big old spreadsheet?
It's all in my ADHD head. Personally, I go on a lot of like heart and emotion. I definitely make decisions based on emotion. And so it is really helpful to have voices from outside help me kind of make more rational decisions as to what is actually like feasible. Sometimes I don't listen to them. And it's usually like, you know, then sometimes it doesn't turn out the greatest way. Yeah, I really, you know, like for example, that August scenario, you know, it was like, I know I need to sometimes be brought back to reality of like, okay, right now, like triathlon is my focus really. And it is what has prize money and is paying the bills. And so that ultimately is something that I do need to prioritize. And I want to prioritize, like for my career right now, my goals are pretty like the things that I still want to check off are in the Ironman distance. And so, yeah, those are kind of the factors that have like come into making decisions like that. But it is really a combination of like, I have my emotions and what like in like an ideal world, I would love to do if I could make all the decisions. And then I have people who I bring in to like help me tone things down a little bit.
It's definitely, I definitely hear you on like having people to bounce things off of, because I think I'm the same way. Like I will sign up for anything and everything, but it's nice having people to just bounce ideas off of. And I think knowing that you make a lot of decisions, myself included, make a lot of decisions like based on like emotions, like for me, for like trail running, like the views and like the challenge and everything. It's just, so it's interesting that you say that. Do you have any like trip tips and tricks on that are processes that you've kind of figured out? Like, I see this race, I badly want to sign up for it, and I'm going to wait 24 hours and sleep on it before I make a decision? Or are you just like ready to pull the trigger and like you have to have your people hold you back?
I think that it's a little bit easier for professional athletes because we don't have to sign up for these races like months and months or like a year in advance. You know, we can wait until 3 weeks out before we make a decision around them. And so there's a lot more flexibility about that. Someone close to me is a runner and just, you know, they have the like early bird entries that are like a lot cheaper. Like if you do sign up a year out, then it's like $20 for a race or something. I don't know what race is $20 anymore, but
I was like, where's the link for that one?
Right?
The local park.
He just like signs up for all of these races like early bird, and so he's like, if I don't make it to one of them, like the amount that I paid for like these races combined, like basically adds up to, you know, the one race that I actually go and do, sort of thing, which I thought was like kind of, if you have to sign up early, like that's kind of the way, it might be a good way to do it. But gosh, tips and tricks. I mean, I find that I have to, like, again, I'm not good at asking for help. And it's not my go-to to like ask other people, you know, what do you think of this? I always feel like, oh, I'm the best judge. I know I can make these decisions on my own. I don't need anybody else's help. But it's really valuable if you get other opinions and someone to help you look at that big picture. And I think if you really keep focus on what are your goals, what are your like overarching goals for the season and the year, and keep those kind of in the forefront of your brain, so you don't get sidetracked by something that just like looks fun at the moment, but is like, oh, this is actually going to affect my race like next month or whatever.
As a professional, do you also have to balance appearances from sponsors? Like, are there parts of your contract that say you need to do X amount of races or X amount of appearances that you have to balance as well when you're making these decisions?
No, I'm really grateful that my sponsors are super flexible in all of these things. I don't have like specific races that I need to hit. Of course, if like one of my sponsors is like sponsoring a race, then they would really love for me to be there, and I will make my best effort to do that. But I'm grateful I don't have any specific obligations to, to go to like specific races. I have a lot of freedom around that, which is rad.
By the way, do you know of anybody who is actually very good at asking for help? Because we can ask them for their tips and tricks on how to do that, because I don't know any.
Need help, send help. Oh wait, I can't ask for how to ask for help.
I know. It's so funny because like we think about, when we have friends who reach out and ask for help, it's always like, oh, this is so great. I'm so grateful that you like reached out to me, and I feel so honored to be able to help you make this decision. And it's like, but when it's ourselves, like we don't think the same way. Like I think, oh, I'm like such a burden. I'm like asking, they're probably busy, they got a family and kids or whatever. Like they don't have time to talk to me.
It's weird, right? Like I don't get it. Like I don't understand why we all internalize everything, but the moment somebody's like, "Hey, can you help me?" We're like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go."
Exactly. Totally.
Do you have a mantra for yourself? Like, so I interviewed Heather Beaver on Monday for an article coming up in our digital magazine, and she said something to me during the interview. I'm going to read it. I wrote it down here that I have not stopped allowing it to rattle in my brain. She said, I need to look at the road ahead and not just the bumps right in front of me. And I thought that was so poignant about bigger picture thinking. And so I want to ask you about that. Like, do you have mantras or ideas of how you can keep bigger picture thinking going on despite all the obstacles that appear on a daily basis in our lives?
Yeah. I do find it challenging. I think throughout my career, that's been one of the challenges for myself to keep that eye on the big picture. And think of those like bits as like road bumps and not like these catastrophic mountains that have been put in front of me. So I don't think I have a mantra or anything like that. I think that it has just been practice over, the course of my career, and going through so many injuries and so many roadblocks that I've just like kind of gotten more into the habit of that. Like even now, I've been struggling for the past like 7 months, have had this like little niggle of an injury that keeps like, it's there, but it's like generally trending, better. And I've learned now, like when I have a bit of a setback, it's not like the end of the world. And I'm like, I'm never going to be able to run again. Like, this is terrible. Like, I'm like going to live with this for the rest of my life. I can finally be in a place of like, okay, this is just a hiccup. It's fine. It's trending up. I've been through this a million times before. It'll get figured out. Like, it's totally fine. And yeah, I think even, I think also when I do feel really stumped, like at the end of this year, feeling really like super low and just not inspired for the next phase. I reached out to other people again, like on that theme. I reached out to folks to get some help, with just managing what I felt like were the biggest obstacles for me moving forwards. And so once I have a plan, to me, like if I have an obstacle, once I have a plan, I'm on like next level. I can go from like before having a plan, I'm like, the world is ending, my career is over. Once I have a plan, I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. And then like if it's an injury or something, all of a sudden it's like half better, you know? Even just having that structure of like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. Yeah, and that focus.
I'm definitely the same way. Like I can really attest to like getting overwhelmed by the goal in front of me and like all the things in front of me. But when I start writing things down and executing and creating a strategy of like, what's this step, then it starts to like feel better. It starts to snowball. And all of a sudden it's like, man, this actually seems manageable. And it's just, no matter how many times I go through it, every single time I see a big thing, I still go through that like, whoa, like, I don't know if I can do this feeling, no matter how many times I've learned to like execute for that way. But I definitely just love writing things down and planning them out.
Well, and this is one of the big lessons that we learn from sport is like, especially endurance sport, you know, if we're racing for several hours, you can't think of like the whole race in and of itself, or you get so overwhelmed. It's like, how the heck am I going to like run a marathon after I spend all of this time on the bike or whatever? You have to break it up into chunks. And I love that it's one of those big things that I've learned from sport is like how to manage those moments of overwhelm in the other parts of my life of like, okay, I'm overwhelmed by this. I can't manage, like, how am I going to do this? Okay, let's sit down, break it up into smaller parts. I love a checklist, things that I can cross off and like see. And it's the same thing of like, yeah, even like in a swim workout, when you're just like following the black line for an hour and a half and it's just like, okay, we're just like, you keep going 100 meters by 100 meters and eventually you finished it and you're good. And you're like, oh, wow, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah. I was actually, I'll let you go ahead. I was actually just going to quote you.
Well, I was going to say, like my mentor once asked me, how are you going to run 100 miles? And I'm like, I won't run 100 miles. I'll run 1 mile 100 times.
Thank you for saying that. That's exactly what I was going to quote.
I love that. I love it.
And it's funny because I actually used that during my last race. I had my choro set to, there's a setting on your choros when you can just put like the mile you're in and like the average pace. So I was just focusing on that mile and that pace and just doing like, every little mile is like a little checkpoint or like a little video game almost.
Yeah.
It definitely helps.
Yeah, totally.
So before we go into the rapid fire section, I wanted to dive into what 2024 looks like. And I know I say dive into a lot. I just noticed that, but I think there is a pun intended there because you are Blue 70 sponsored and you do have a dive portion of your race. So let's dive into 2024. What does that look like for you, Rach?
Yeah, I'm excited to start this season. Apparently, I have signed up for a 130-mile gravel race in exactly a month. I was just like, because I had planned to, I'm heading down to St. George, Utah for the month of February to train gravel and triathlon and everything with some friends, and then head to Mid-South Gravel, which is a 100-mile race in Stillwater, Oklahoma in the second week of March. And so I'm just on a big road trip down to Utah, and somehow I came across like BMC, who I ride their gravel bike. They have a race in California that's like at the beginning of February, and I'm like, that's kind of on the way to Utah.
Sure.
I'll just stop down there. And I think initially I thought the race was only 70 miles. It was like a shorter one. And then when I realized, oh, it's 130 miles. Okay. I guess I should start riding my gravel bike a lot more. Yeah, so I'm going to start off my season there. It's called, BMC Rock Cobbler in Bakersfield, and then Mid-South Gravel, which is like this absolutely amazing, wonderful race in Oklahoma. And then And then I'll sprinkle in some 70.3s, I think, probably St. George at least. And I'll be back to Unbound for Unbound 200, the 200-mile gravel race at the beginning of June. And maybe some other gravel main 70.3 leading into Ironman Canada. Ironman Penticton, I think, as it's called right now, at the end of August. And it's quite possible I might then just jump to Idaho and race Rebecca's Private Idaho like 4 days later. Maybe.
We're doing an Enjoying the Journey series with Pat Spencer, who is going to be racing at Rebecca's Private Idaho. So
nice.
She's excited for it.
Yeah, I have, again, like bucket list races. It's like, this was part of my like bucket list August. I'm like, okay, is there something I can do from August? So that might be what I jump into. It feels a little bit ambitious, a couple days after racing Ironman, but
you'll have the fitness.
Yeah, I might be just riding it. I might just go out and have fun.
Yeah, why not?
Use them as recovery rides. But.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is over, 4 days, so you have some time in there to sleep at night.
Totally.
Out of curiosity, I can't see very well, but over your left shoulder, who is that a picture of?
Oh, that is, it's like an artistic photograph. I've had it for since I was a teenager. And it's just like a woman, it's called praying mantis, because she actually, you can't really see it, but she's got a praying mantis on her face. And it's just, an artist who did the photograph a long time ago. Yeah.
All right. Well, Rach, it's been an awesome third episode with you, but we can't let you go without doing the rapid fire.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. I'm buckling up here. I'm ready.
All right, Jason, take it away.
All right. When you're eating tacos, are you going hard shell taco or soft shell taco tortilla?
Soft shell.
Perfect. Yeah. When you're making a burrito or you're ordering a burrito, do you prefer it to be, on the plancha so it has some texture, some crunch to it, or just straight up wrapped and you're good to go?
Straight up wrap.
When you're cutting your sandwich, do you cut it on an angle so you have 2 triangles, or straight down the middle so you have 2 rectangles?
2 rectangles.
Do you get fancy and cut it into them 4 squares so they're like little tapas sandwiches?
Only if it's like a PB&J that I'm bringing with me. Like I have to stick into a pocket, like a ride, jersey pocket. Only time I would cut it into 4s.
When you're eating your burrito, are you putting hot sauce in at one time, like in the fillings, or are you putting it on every single bite?
I'm not like a huge hot sauce person, but if I am using hot sauce, it's going to be like a little bit on each bite.
Yeah. Now, we know pineapple on pizza, whatever it is. So when it comes to toppings in general, though, favorite topping on pizza, or is it straight plain and you're good to go?
Favorite topping on pizza? Oh, it's hard to narrow it down. Favorite topping. Well, you stumped me now.
Yeah, I see that. Wow. Of all the hard questions I've ever posed, this was the least imposing one. Most people are yelling pepperoni or plain.
Because like all of these things come to mind. Like I already have an entire pizza built up in my head of like, this would be the most amazing pizza.
I'm going to submit this for the Pulitzer Prize.
Well, you know what? I used to live in Berlin, and there was this pizza place near us that would put corn on pizza, and I think it's like a very under the radar, amazing pizza topping.
Interesting. What food in Germany did you used to eat that you don't eat here and you wish you could, or they don't have here either in Canada or in the States when you come here?
It's like really tasty pretzel bread. They call it Laugenbrötchen in Germany, and it's like a pretzel bread. And you can get pretzel bread here, but it's not the same. It's not as tasty at all. So when I go back to Germany, it's like that is the first thing. I'm like every single day to the bakery, Laugenbrötchen.
Favorite flavor of ice cream?
We have an ice cream here called Moose Tracks. That's like, it's like peanut butter cup, and I think it's got like fudge and caramel and like little brownie pieces in like a vanilla ice cream. But basically anything that's got like peanut butter cups in it, I'm all over it. Peanut butter and chocolate. Yeah.
When you're out riding at Mid-South or at Unbound and we check your jersey pockets, what is the one thing we're going to pull out and laugh at when it comes to food? Like, be like surprised by it.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. For Unbound, because it's like a 12-hour race, I don't want to be eating sweet all the time. And so I make little sandwiches that I cut into fours. It's like white bread and with like a veggie salami, like a veggie bologna kind of thing, and like a slice of cheese. And it's so good.
I love it.
Yeah. Because like really your pockets are just going to be filled with food. Like there's not really anything else in there, is food. But the other thing that you will find in my jersey pocket at Unbound is a paint stir stick.
Oh, Marley Blonsky talked about that when she did it this year with the mud. Did she learn it from you?
No, it's like a standard thing for Unbound, is like you bring a paint stick with you. And unfortunately, last year I had a paint stick with me and then got into the mud and reached back to look for it in my pocket, and it must have fallen out somewhere. And I was like, of all the years.
Yeah, it was brutal this year, right?
Yeah. It was crazy. It was awesome.
Those pictures that I saw, it just looked so brutal. I mean, people walking on the side of the road with all their, with all the mud everywhere.
Oh yeah, it was nuts. Yeah.
So you finished the race though, right?
I did. Yeah, I was grateful. I was one of those folks what like my drivetrain held together, and a lot of folks complained about the mud, but I'm like, maybe that would be me if my bike had broken because of it and I wouldn't have been able to finish the race. But I think like it is one of the things of Unbound. Like that is part of the course. Like we all knew it was there before the race. So it just, what are you complaining about? It's Unbound. That's riding gravel in Kansas.
Yeah. So when you finished, what were you looking for from a recovery food standpoint?
Beer. Yeah. 100% beer.
I think we've asked almost every other one of these things. From a brownie, do you like brownies?
I do.
Oh, well, you just said it was in Moose Track. So yeah, so now I've just lost my Pulitzer because I didn't even recall that. On a brownie, when you're cutting it and you're ready to eat the first piece, are you an edge person or are you a center piece that's a little gooey and melty?
Oh, gooey all the way. I feel like when you have a baked good and you like have the batter and you put it in the oven to bake it, you wreck it. I would much rather eat cookie dough or cake batter or brownie batter than the actual baked good.
It's awesome.
100%.
Nuts or no nuts on the brownies?
I enjoy a nut on the brownie. Yeah. A little sea salt too.
Yeah.
Ooh, sea salt.
Yeah.
Favorite cookie flavor? Cookie type?
Oatmeal chocolate chip.
Yeah, oatmeal chocolate chip. Wait a minute. That's a little different.
Were you thinking oatmeal raisin?
I was all in on oatmeal raisin. I was excited.
Raisins do not belong in cookies. Raisins barely belong anywhere.
Have you ever had it in carrot cake?
That's different. That's different.
Okay, all right. I'll give you that one.
They're awesome. I'm a carrot cake fan, and they're awesome in carrot cake.
I can give you carrot cake and raisin, but I cannot give you raisins and cookies, Jason.
I gotta. Oatmeal raisin is my favorite. Look,
I-
I'm 50 years old. I'm getting old, man. I need all that fiber and grains I can get.
Circling back, I have a carrot cake recipe that has pineapple in it.
I've heard about pineapple because it adds the moisture
Yeah.
in the carrot cake a little bit too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's yummy.
Oh,
Speaking of cake, did we ask you if red velvet was a real flavor or just like a bougied up chocolate cake?
I think red velvet is a real flavor.
Maybe.
But I think that most bakeries don't make it correct, like how it's supposed to be made. I think usually they just add like a red food coloring.
Yeah, that's usually. Yeah, because it should have like a little tang to it, which comes from vinegar usually, but they don't actually do that, and it's never really all that good.
No.
Savory or sweet? You have to choose one for the rest of your life.
The rest of my life. I'm gonna go with savory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a massive sweet tooth for sure, but I feel like you can get so much more complexity in savory.
Yeah.
So if it was like what I'm going to be eating for the rest of my life, there's like more range.
Yeah, and I think you could kind of cheat a little bit too, right? You could have apple pie. Apples are sweet. Pie is kind of savory, so you could kind of cheat a little bit and have apple pie.
What? How is pie savory?
I find the crust is, I don't find crust to be sweet. Maybe that's just me. I just think candy, straight up.
Okay, yeah, fair.
I always get told I have terrible food take, so clearly my taste buds are all over the place anyway.
So this is a theme. I love it.
Ooh, is that a knock on pineapple?
It's why I'm fascinated by people's eating habits, because I'm like, why would you eat that? I don't understand.
I love like all of the rapid fires are just food. It's all food.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, honestly, as athletes though, right? We're constantly eating. So
I mean, my gosh, I know. Yeah.
It's never ending. Like I just saw somebody post the other day, they finished a race. It was like on Saturday, and they're like, their hunger just hit today, like, and now they're ravenous and they can't stop eating.
Yeah.
Like, constantly finding calories to essentially be able to go out and train again for the next event, next race type thing.
Yeah. It's so weird. It's so weird how, especially those like really long distance events, it's like, you need to eat, but you're just like not hungry. And it's this terrible feeling of like, I know I need to like force feed myself something, but I really just don't feel like eating anything. And then you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh my God, I'm so fucking hungry.
What about pre-race? Like, do you find it easy to eat pre-race, or is that another scenario in which I know I need to get some calories in before I get to that starting line, but man, I just don't want to eat.
I'm usually pretty good about eating before races. I get up like 99% of mornings. I get up every single morning and eat breakfast before I go train, like a full oatmeal breakfast. So I'm used to eating in the morning.
Cool. Well, I'm all out of rapid fire food questions. I'll leave it to you.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a smorgasbord of food questions, so I think we're good now. But Rach, thank you so much for being on our Fireside Chat again. It's always a good time, and we're definitely going to have you back on a fourth time for sure.
Oh, yeah. I would love it. I love chatting with you guys. I love talking about food.
We're going to have to start our own food show.
I know, seriously.
There's an idea right there. All right. Well, have a great evening, everybody.
Thanks, Rach.
Thank you.